Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All right, it is Friday, and all of our guests, including Thomas Drance from The Athletic, standing by, sponsored by Basant Motors. Basant is sharing the love all month long. Head to BasantMotors.com and download a coupon for your choice of a dine-out gift card or hockey tickets with your next vehicle purchase. Get all the info at Basant Motors, BASANT Motors.com. Just before we get to Thomas, Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox. You know this was coming. Rick with the cold, unsigned. Rick, the best cold medicine is preparation.
Look, I screwed up with the Preparation H stuff yesterday. I'll own that. I'll own it.
Okay, let's bring in, as we focus on the Canucks victory over the Red Wings, 4-1 last night. From The Athletic, Thomas Drance. Thomas, thanks for doing this, sir. You have no idea what you're walking into. How are you doing?
I like to think I'm like the ointment for your program. You know?
No, you're not.
That's
no, you're not.
Like. That's what I. Yeah. And really, I'm like the Preparation H for your program because coming in on Fridays, I really bring up the rear end.
There you go. Very good.
That was good. That was good.
Thanks, boys.
Okay. Canucks last night. Tough turn. We're going to take it. They kill off 5 Detroit penalties. Canucks PK has risen to 13th in the National Hockey League. We're going to focus there. What are you seeing? Because the PK going into the season was a major problem.
It was, and it's a massive, like, here's the thing. It's a massive organizational success that it's average. And over the course of the past 6 weeks or so, it's been better than that, right? Especially the last 5 weeks. You're seeing really good work from the Canucks PK. But, even getting to within the bounds of what's normal for NHL teams, given what this team accomplished 4-on-5 or what they couldn't accomplish 4-on-5 over the last 2 seasons, it is tremendous. It's required them bringing in some really good penalty killing players. We know that was a focus of their work on July 1st, right? That's been effective. Players like Bluger, players like Ian Cole have made a big difference. It's required Rick Tocchet to tinker with Mike Yeo, who, of course, is the Canucks assistant that runs the PK. Over the course of the season, we've seen them, they sort of started the year with like Hughes and Hronek and JT Miller playing really big roles on the penalty kill. We've kind of seen that diminish. We've seen them find what works. Neil Zaman has stayed in the lineup in part because of his penalty killing excellence. Dakota Joshua, though he wasn't part of the game last night, has developed into a really good penalty killer. Tyler Myers has become a linchpin, first guy over the boards on a pair with Ian Cole most often on the penalty kill. And then over the course of the past month, the goaltenders have run hot. And that's been a key difference in sort of what's happened. Your goalie has to be your best penalty killer is an often said bromide in hockey. And that's what we're seeing of late. Vancouver's penalty kill had gotten to the point where it was average or within the normal range, and their goaltending has put it over the top for a really nice hot stretch over the course of the past month.
Elias Lindholm, he was a winger when Jim Rutherford had him with the Carolina Hurricanes. And this is no surprise. Rick Tocchet yesterday, hearkening back to his days with the Calgary, Rick Tocchet yesterday post-game saying, hey, he is a center. Do you agree with that, even though it might mean Elias Pettersson, like last night, moves to the wing?
Yeah, I do. I do agree that he's a center. We saw him win, 12 of 18 draws last night. He's become a big part of this penalty kill. And scored 2 goals in his home debut. He scored 2 goals in his Canucks debut, 2 goals in his home debut. We need to find different ways for this guy to debut. I think that's the key here. His debut in the black skate, his debut on a Wednesday. We need to figure out new ways for this guy to debut because obviously he's the master of it. I do think he's a center. I really do. I think his, ability to read play, to be an F3, I like all of that better than I like him along the wall. I sort of like him in layers. I like him using his brain instead of his instincts because he's a highly intelligent player who wins a lot of battles. He's heavy enough to, pick the spot where you can bust up an opponent's breakout and disrupt it. Likewise, he's a really good playmaker. I mean, I really like Lindholm in the middle. I think Tocchet's right. And I think that poses some interesting questions about how the Canucks will line up going forward. Because I also prefer Pettersson in the middle. You know, I don't know any way around the fact that between JT Miller, Lindholm, and Pettersson, are you better off playing them on three separate lines? And if you are, then what do you do with your third line once Dakota Joshua's back? Because we know that line's inseparable, and for a good reason. It's Vancouver's best 5-on-5 line. So, I mean, those are good problems to have. Too much center depth? Yes, that's exactly what you want at this time of year. We'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, I thought Lindholm had an excellent home debut and looks very good, very comfortable. In fact, more comfortable when he's in the middle of the ice.
Well, maybe if they sign Kessel, some of these wingers can go back to center. Now, what are you hearing on Kessel and his tryout here in Vancouver this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think the same as everybody. I think there's a real level of interest, but I think there's also a real level of interest in how what stage he's at, right? Where his fitness level's at. It doesn't feel like this is going to rush to happen, but
no.
I don't think Phil Kessel with his resume is in Abbotsford to check out Castle Fun Park, right? Like, I mean, he's here because this is a serious consideration. I do expect it to happen at some point. It makes sense for the Canucks to take their time here, though, given the stakes of the season now with the way this team is rolling along. Given the flexibility that the team has right now, but that, signing Kessel, even if it's a veteran minimum deal, will take off the table. It makes sense to see what, to sort of take this slow, see where he's at, see what else develops. You've got 3 weeks to sign him where he'd retain his eligibility to compete in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think he's an extra body more than like a big X factor potential for this team, but extra bodies can matter an awful lot when you get deep into May and into early June.
All right, 3 weeks today, Thomas, is the trade deadline. Canucks are still working the phones, monitoring, I think, big and small deals.
Yep.
What's on your wish list for the deadline for the Canucks?
I mean, look, if you can swing another big deal, I think it makes sense. The way that this club is positioned with all of those expiring UFAs, if something unique shakes loose, like I do think the deadline, and we've seen this in the past with like the Bruins buying Hampus Lindholm or Charlie Coyle, like I think the deadline can be a really good time to buy long-term fits, not just rentals. And we sort of saw the Canucks dip their toe into that pool last year with the Filip Hronek trade. Like I think those can work if the right opportunity presents itself. So I think it makes sense to explore that, more with an eye toward just bringing in a good player who fits long term, as opposed to addressing a specific need. In terms of specific needs, though, I still think another puck moving defenseman, ideally a righty. That to me would be probably priority number one in the wake of the Lindholm acquisition. Another big-bodied forward who can kill penalties. What like we saw with Joshua out of the lineup, Connor Garland played under 10 minutes 5-on-5 last night. Now, obviously there was a lot of penalty killing opportunities. There's a reason for that, but Garland's minutes have been higher when Joshua's in the lineup. You sort of wonder, with Joshua on his wing, does Tocchet feel more comfortable, putting that line out than he did with Mikheyev last night? It's only one game, but the usage certainly makes me ask the question. And Garland's important to this team. Like, if you need him to play with size to feel comfortable playing him the sorts of minutes, and he's regularly been playing second line minutes over the course of the past few weeks, if you need another winger with size to protect that kind of usage, I think that tells you a lot. Like, I think that speaks volumes about what Tocchet might think his team needs. Another big-bodied forward who can kill penalties, a puck-moving defenseman, and then keep your powder dry because you never know. 3 weeks is an eon in the NHL, right? I mean, a lot can change, and I think keeping your powder dry in terms of cap flexibility so that you can pivot and address any injuries that crop up between now and March 8th, that would sort of be priority 3 for me.
Would he prefer dry powder or preparation H?
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Or 8535
you don't have to answer that. Thomas, one more quickly, if you don't mind. We talked
Yeah,
about
either
this
way,
earlier.
we're going to a dark place.
Very good. Hey, one more quickly. I thought last night's game had a lot of two entertaining teams.
Yeah.
Offensively gifted teams who played, a few days before that. Can the NHL, I know there's a million logistics to worry about and scheduling is tough, but can the NHL ever do something? Would they ever consider having, games like that where the teams just, their games are closer together or back-to-back situations? Because I think it had a lot to do with the entertainment value last night.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was in terms of engineering it, I mean, it does make some sense, like from a gas consumption standpoint, right? It does make some sense from a travel logistics standpoint. I thought they'd do that during the All-Canadian division. Like, I remember thinking that it was going to be, extended series, like in baseball, where you just play the same team 7 times. That ultimately that didn't happen. And ultimately, I think teams got players, coaches, everybody got a little sick of seeing the same matchups, just like time and time again. Like, I think it was better in theory than in practice. But yeah, I mean, setting up a home and home at close succession like that, I think has worked. And one thing to note is we're going to see a lot more of it, right? I mean, we're going to see the Jets 3 times beginning on Saturday at Rogers Arena. We're going to see the Kings 4 times. We're going to see the Avs twice. We're going to see Vegas twice. I think the way that those Edmonton games early in the year sort of took on this feel of a series of, a team struggling against this upstart group, and, how that plays out sort of toward the end of the year is going to be a fun subplot to watch too. So, I do think there seems to be some effort at least to try and catch some lightning in the bottle with the way the schedule's lined up. And certainly over the balance, we're going to see some familiar faces and a fair bit of opportunity for some bad blood to form and some gritties to be dropped.
There you go. Thomas, next week, thanks so much.
Gentlemen, enjoy your weekend.